What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Today's episode of the podcast is our preview of the AFC North division for the 2024 NFL season. We dropped our preview of the NFC North on Tuesday this week. So if you missed that one, go back and check that out. Before we get started, just a reminder, you can reach out to us, fouledOutsports@gmail.com. We really appreciate you guys listening, and we love to hear from you. As part of these preview podcasts, Matt and I are giving bold predictions for every division, and we would love to hear your bold predictions. Email them to us, fouledOutsports@gmail.com. We're going to pick our favorites that are submitted by fans and read them on the Week 1 podcast right before the season starts, and the winners will get a free Fouled Out hat. So make sure you email those in and get a chance at one of our sweet hats. I have a bunch of friends who have the hats from the podcast, and they all love them. But for now, let's go grab Matt and let's talk about the AFC North. Let's go. All right, we are back. Matt is here, ready to talk about the AFC North, the division that I think for the second year in a row is going to be the best division in football. I think everybody always wants to give that honor to a different division, but this division's been hard as shit for years now. Yeah. It was the only division to have all four teams go over 500 last season.
Yeah.
So, Matt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. I'm excited for football again. I needed a little bit of a breather there for a minute, but I saw Terry and Arnold popping some pads with Andrew Thomas, and I'm excited.
Ooh. I always, whenever the Patriots lost a Super Bowl during their run, that was always the hardest time for me to get back around into football.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward to the end of the season when the Lions lose to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl because you don't have Patrick Mahomes, and then you won't talk to me for the entire offseason.
No, it's okay because then I've won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because that's as far as any team can get that doesn't have Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, we're going to talk about a division that he absolutely owns. He's eliminated the Bengals from the playoffs.
Otherwise known as every division.
Yes. The AFC North, starting with our biggest narrative. I'm batting leadoff this episode. So
all right.
My narrative for the AFC North this year is, are the Bengals really contenders? And I capitalized really. It's been a really popular narrative in sports media as well as on this podcast that Joe Burrow is the only person that can stop Patrick Mahomes because only two quarterbacks have defeated Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs right now. And it is Tom Brady, who is retired, did it twice, and Joe Burrow beat him one time. But after losing the Super Bowl, the Bengals came back, went 12-4, and then lost to Kansas City in the playoffs. And then they come back the year after, last season, and go 9-8. They missed the playoffs. Obviously missed Joe Burrow for a large portion of the season after his wrist and hand absolutely exploded on national television. But even with him last season, they were only 5-5.
And yeah, they weren't playing well.
Wasn't exactly off to a good start. Like he's not a fast starter. He hasn't been for a couple of years now. So this my question is like, is the Bengals getting to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago? Actually, was that just a fluke? Because you look at that AFC championship in Kansas City, and I think Kansas City was up like 20-3 at halftime, 17-3. And like, that was that weird game where they had an opportunity to put more points on the board before the half. And they threw that like weird lateral to Tyreek Hill and he didn't score. They didn't kick the field goal. And then something weird happened with Mahomes and he was just not Mahomes the rest of that game.
Right.
And part was Anarumo's game plan, but another part of it looked like he might have had a concussion or like there was something going on with him.
Yeah.
So if the one time you beat the Chiefs is questionable, I'm sitting here like, can you really beat the Chiefs? Are you really a contender? Are you the hero that we need? Or are you just another AFC team that can't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs?
They still need to prove that they're the best team in their own division. Like, prove that before we even start talking about whether or not you can beat Mahomes.
I think they had that title for a couple of years. And then, like, after last season, now it's like, okay, you got to win that title back.
Yeah.
Because the Ravens were awesome last season until their brains completely fell apart. And they only ran the ball 6 times in the AFC Championship. I'm still not over it, Matt. Still not over it. Can't fucking wait for the first game of the season to watch Derrick Henry carry the ball 5 times against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be fucking fantastic.
To get back to the Bengals too, like a huge part of that success that got them to the Super Bowl and drove them to 12-4 the year after was that defense. And yeah, Lou Anarumo was great. And I think Lou Anarumo would tell you himself a big part of what allowed him to do the things that made that defense great was DJ fucking Reader. And you just don't have a replacement for that. DJ Readers don't grow on trees. Trees can't support that weight.
No, that would be a big tree.
Maybe redwoods.
Full of DJ Readers. But what is your biggest narrative for the AFC North this season?
Slight trigger warning, Adam. Did the Ravens learn fucking anything?
No.
Adam, like, have they learned anything at all?
I wasn't ready. He even said trigger warning, and I was like, what is he gonna? Matt's never said anything that triggered me before, and now I'm triggered.
Like,
I might not talk the rest of this podcast.
Yeah, like seriously. They've had so many opportunities to maybe not necessarily like get to the Super Bowl, but at least like be in it, like have the opportunity to really go at it. And every time it just seems like they Plexico burst themselves.
We had a listener reach out last year and say he thinks the NFL is rigged to get Taylor Swift to the Super Bowl because why would the Ravens only run it 6 times? And I was like, oh, I would totally agree with you. I love conspiracy theories, except for the fact that it's not the first time that they did it.
Yeah.
They did it against the Titans. We talked about this last year. I hate this topic.
Yeah.
I hate you for bringing up this topic. So sad. And I hate the Ravens. I don't even like the Ravens.
And like, this is coming from someone who's for years been like, yeah, no, like you can't run the Greg Roman offense and expect to win in the playoffs. But like, that doesn't mean that you go to the opposite of what Greg Roman is.
John Harbaugh really scared me this offseason because I'm like, God, you had to have learned your lesson, right? You lost in the AFC Championship. And like last year was the Ravens' year. It was the Ravens' year to win the Super Bowl.
That was their shot.
That was your shot. We're going to talk about them in win ranges in a second, but like that was your year and you blew it because you just completely threw out everything that worked for you. And you're like, this is time to prove Lamar Jackson's better than Patrick Mahomes. And then John Harbaugh comes out this offseason and says, we want to prove that Lamar Jackson can be the greatest quarterback of all time. And I was like, God damn it. They've learned absolutely nothing. And that's why I say the first game of the season is Ravens at Chiefs. And they signed Derrick Henry. They got this big, they get King Henry, big running back acquisition. He's going to run the ball about 5 times in Kansas City. And I'm going to come on this podcast and scream until my vocal cords rip.
It's just going to be an hour of us screaming like Rick and Morty coming out of that portal and getting back into the spaceship.
Yeah, I was thinking it's either that or it's just the two of us screaming they didn't listen. It's the kind of content the listeners can look forward to this season. Let's go to win ranges and talk about the Baltimore Ravens because they are up first. Because this year I did my list in alphabetical order, which, I listened to the podcast last year. I was like, man, the episodes last year were really good. We did a great job. And we had one running gag was that I couldn't do alphabetical order and I kept messing up the teams. And I was like, I'm going to do it this year. I'm going to nail it. Can I also, before I read the Ravens win range that I wrote down, I need to tell you something that's extremely disturbing. How many teams are there in the Big Ten this year? There's like 17 or like 18 teams in the Big Ten now.
Something stupid.
Whatever
Almost
it is.
double the number that's in the name of the division, yes.
If you put them in alphabetical order, all 18, 20 teams, however many there are, the first one alphabetically is Illinois. It doesn't seem possible. But the first Big Ten team alphabetically is the University of Illinois. Yep. Matt, we lost Matt. He took his headphones off and left.
I had to go eat some Cinnamon Toast Crunch so I could get the taste of Illinois out of my mouth.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I thought I would share that little factoid with you and that you would enjoy that.
That's insane.
Yeah. So, all right, win ranges for the AFC North, starting with the Baltimore Ravens. I have the Ravens between 9 and 12. Their over-under in Vegas is 10.5. The thing, I downgraded them from where they were last year slightly because I really felt like last year was their year and they blew it. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little bit worried about the hangover from that. And then also to lose major pieces like Geno Stone and Patrick Queen, two division rivals. Like Geno Stone goes to the Bengals, Patrick Queen goes to the Steelers. Those were major parts of your defense last season. That's another tough one for me. So my question is I expect them to take a step back, but how far of a step back can you take when you won 13, 14 games, whatever they won last season?
Yeah, I don't think that they are going to be as good of a team as they were last year.
I just don't think it's possible. They were the best team in the league almost the entire season, and they were absolutely schmeckeldorfing other good teams.
Yeah.
They beat the shit out of the Lions and the 49ers last season.
Yeah.
Right? They absolutely smacked them around.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have them 10-13. I just don't see them, barring serious injuries, dropping to 9 wins. I just don't see it. I mean, even losing those guys, this is one of those teams where it's yeah, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's actually what I wrote down, is that they have the infrastructure to still be a double-digit win team.
Yeah.
I just downgraded it slightly because I'm yeah, they're going to be over 500, but I do think there's a real risk of the hangover from just sitting there all offseason and being damn, that was our year to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
That was our year to beat Patrick Mahomes, and we blew it.
Yeah.
So team 2 is the Cincinnati Bengals. I have the same win range that I gave the Baltimore Ravens. I said between 9 and 12. And you know what Las Vegas did, Matt? I almost called you Maddox. You know what Las Vegas did, Matt?
I'm going to say they had them at, 10.5?
Las Vegas has them at 10.5, the same over-under as the Baltimore Ravens. So I have the same win range. Vegas has this. 12. Yep, 9 and 12. Vegas has the same over-under. If Joe Burrow is healthy, I still believe in this team. I really do. We're talking about things I believe in. That's going to be the main theme for me of the preseason, and doing all these picks is what do you believe in? And just go in on it. I still believe in Joe Burrow, even if he looks like Slim Shady. I'm in. And I think he's had a lot of time to just sit back and be pissed off and listen to all these people talk about him. And I think he's going to come out like a house of fire this season. I love the addition of Geno Stone, especially stealing him from a division rival. They bring back Von Bell, who was on their team as a safety the year they went to the Super Bowl and then left for a season. And I know they can't replace DJ Reader. You're just never going to replace that guy because he's so damn good.
No.
But adding Sheldon Rankins is not a bad filler.
It's not nothing, but it fundamentally changes what they have to do with their front.
Yeah, you just got to hope that the upgrades to the backside of the defense are good enough to like help offset the downgrade of DJ Reader to Sheldon Rankins.
I mean, the real loss there is you don't have that guy that makes it super easy for you to stop the run with 4. Because that has massive implications on what you can do with the pass game as well.
Yeah, it was just the hard thing about last year is like to lose Von Bell and Jesse Bates the same season.
Yeah.
And then like you put Dax Hill in, but you can't use him like a Swiss Army knife. Nope. You got to like put him more in a spot. So like now, you bring in 2 safeties and Dax is like able to play that star like robber position.
Yeah.
Again, so I think upgrading there might help offset some of the losses in the front. But yeah, I have them the same as the Ravens. I have 9-12. What do you have?
9-12.
Scary groupthink. We didn't coordinate any of this.
We really didn't. Like, I didn't tell you I knew my shit coming into this. So
I didn't even know Matt's narratives. All right. Team 3 is the Cleveland Browns. Their Vegas over-under is 8.5. I think this will be the test for how in line we're going to be. I have the Browns between 7 and 10. I'm very meh on the Browns, but they won 11 games last season with Joe Flacco at quarterback for a large portion of the season because that defense was absolutely nasty last year. Like people forget because Houston like blew their socks off in that playoff game that defense, especially at home last season, was on pace to set records in the NFL. They were all sorts of nasty. I don't expect them to be that good this season, but I still expect them to be good. I know Deshaun Watson's going to start. I do not believe in Deshaun Watson, but he was 5-1 last season when he did start because the rest of the team around him was so good. And they have Jameis Winston as a backup. So if they do get into that, like, we need a chuck it and fuck it backup to come in and do the Joe Flacco thing, you have the ultimate chuck it and fuck it backup. So I'm not going to build them up too much because I kind of expect them to be more around like 7 to 8. But I think if the defense does come back and is able to be pretty nasty again, I have to have the possibility open that they could be under 5 or they could be over 500.
Yeah, I have them 6 to 10.
God damn it.
I mean, you nailed it. The defense is legit. Probably not as lethal this year. And oh, by the way, you still have Nick Chubb.
Well, you have Nick Chubb again. You didn't have Nick Chubb last season. So he'll be an interesting guy to watch coming off that.
Get him back, yeah.
Coming off that gnarly leg injury. But Jerome Ford did step in and do a really nice job while he was out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just look at I know Alex Van Pelt left and went to the Patriots, and I'm very excited to have him. But Kevin Stefanski called this offense last season. And even though they have a new offensive coordinator, they're not switching who's calling the plays. Yeah. So for him to do that with Joe Flacco, I kind of want to see Watson get benched, one for personal reasons, but also who would you rather see in the 2023 Browns offense than Jameis Winston? They're just we're going to take a ton of deep shots. We don't care.
You really that's the ideal fit in terms of just let's see how this plays out.
It's number 1, Brett Favre. Number 2, Jameis Winston, because those are 2 of the biggest guys in NFL history where when they put the ball up, I have no idea what's going to happen. All right. Last team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have the Steelers between 6 and 10. Their over under in Vegas is 8.5. You have to have a winning record in your range. You cannot say a team coached by Mike Tomlin does not have a chance to go over 500 because he's been over 500 every single season, including last year where he had Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and whoever else playing quarterback, and they still found a way to win 10 games. They also have TJ Watt. So I just think the perfect illustration of this team is like they're probably going to be a 9 or a 10 win team. They were 10-7 last season, and they had a negative 20-point differential. And they're replacing Pickett with Wilson and Fields, which honestly I'm not super pumped about. And they have the hardest strength of schedule in the NFL. But it honestly, you could just miss me with everything. They're going to be 500 or better. They're going to be either 8-1 or better.
Yeah, I have them 6-9. And to be clear, I only have the 9 in there because of what history has said.
Yeah.
Like,
no, last year I put their win range at 9.
Yeah.
That was it for me, because I was like, I don't believe this team is a 500 team, but also Mike Tomlin has been over 500 every single year. So it's 9, and they ended up winning 10.
Yeah. But I can't see the path to 10.
I didn't see it last year. It just happens. JJ Watt like makes some ridiculous play at the end of a game that they shouldn't win, and takes a fumble back for a touchdown, and you're just like, oh, okay, I guess they won that one.
The fact that man doesn't have an MVP is a travesty. Like,
insanity.
The things that he has done, the impact he has created from the defensive side of the ball goes so far beyond a defensive player of the year.
Yes. I don't know. You threw me a curveball in the first divisional preview podcast. So I'm like, I feel like your bold prediction is going to be about JJ Watt, but I'm not or TJ Watt. God damn it. I do this every year. Adam. TJ Watt. But I'm excited to find out.
I'm willing to tell you now that it is not about TJ Watt.
Curveball number 2.
Yeah.
All right. My bold prediction for the AFC North. And I'm so proud of this one. I wanted to text this to you the other day, but I thought it would be better to just share it on the podcast. The Steelers of Pittsburgh somehow throw for less yards this season with the combination of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields at quarterback. I was really proud of that one when I thought of it.
Oh my God.
Day. Let me lay it out for you, because it's a thing of beauty.
No, I'm seeing it.
They were 25th in the NFL last year, 187.8 yards per game. So in order to achieve this boldy bold, Pittsburgh will have to throw for less than 3,163 yards. You had Pickett, who you ditched in favor of Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson only threw for 205 in a Sean Payton offense in Denver with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and those guys. You also brought in Justin Fields on the cheap. Justin Fields threw for 197.1 last season in Chicago. At the end of last season, the Pittsburgh Steelers got rid of offensive coordinator Matt Canada. If you listen to the podcast, you know that the smartest thing they could have done was get rid of Matt Canada. And we celebrated. And we said, good job, Pittsburgh Steelers. Next year, you will have a functional offense. Until they hired their offensive coordinator, chode coach Arthur Smith. You may remember that Arthur Smith is famous on this podcast for absolutely fucking me last season with the Atlanta Falcons. So you're bringing in Russell Wilson, who's washed, and Justin Fields, who can't read a defense. You're putting them in, like, in all seriousness, I hate Arthur Smith, but in all seriousness, he is a run the ball first type of guy. When he was successful in Tennessee, where they had Ryan Tannehill and they ran the ball down people's throats with Derrick Henry and threw off play action. I expect a lot of Jaylen Warren. I expect a lot of Najee Harris. I expect Justin Fields to take over this offense at some point this season and use his legs a lot. What I don't expect is to have a successful passing game in Pittsburgh. And that is why I believe they will throw for less yards this season. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. You just want to end the podcast there? You can't top it.
Jesus fucking Christ. I should have at least let me go first.
Instantly text you the other day when I thought of this, and I was like, I cannot wait to share this with you on the podcast. Because
I mean, like, nothing could be better. Nothing could possibly beat that because it's so insane. But if it's a real possibility.
It just came to me like a stroke of brilliance. But try to land the plane here, Matt, because we've gone way off the rails. What is your bold prediction?
Not as wild.
When we go bold, we go bold.
Deshaun Watson will at some point this season be benched for another quarterback in Cleveland, not because of injury. Kevin Stefanski has to know that his time is running out in Cleveland. Like, at a certain point, if you don't win divisions, win playoff games, like, you're going to be kicked to the curb. That simply hasn't happened. And while, yes, they were 5-1 in games in which Deshaun Watson started last year, it was in no part due to his play at all whatsoever. I cannot imagine that Kevin Stefanski wants to go down riding the ship of Deshaun Watson when he's got a few good years left of that just absolute flamethrower of a defense and Nick Chubb. They've still got Amari Cooper too. Like, they've got like a good starting outside wide receiver.
By the time this podcast comes out, they may have also traded for Brandon Ayuk. It was apparently it was between the Pats and the Browns, and the Patriots had a deal in place for Ayuk today, but it fell through because they're concerned he won't sign the extension in New England. So their Browns seem like they might be the only team left.
I mean, really ask yourself, if you're a coach with that kind of defense, do you really want to like fight to just barely get over 500 with a quarterback that's not going to score you any points? Or are you going to say like, hey, like, I want to try the guy that I know will score me points, might put us in a few bad spots with turnovers, but like, I want to, at the very least, I can trust my defense to maybe mop up those situations.
The thing that's always been so confusing to me about the Deshaun Watson trade is like, he just doesn't fit in Stefanski's offense.
He was never a fit.
If you're going to take the outsized risk of bringing in a guy who has all of these sexual assault allegations, is getting sued by all these women, it's going to be horrible optics, and you're going to pay, for first and give him the biggest, like, massive quarterback deal, and you're going to do all this stuff. I guess I would just understand it more if it was someone who was going to be good in your offense. We've known Deshaun Watson for years cannot play with his back to the defense.
Yeah.
He is a shotgun quarterback who cannot take his eyes off the defense. And you can be successful doing that in the NFL. He was successful doing that in Houston. I'm not saying that you can't be, but Stefanski wants to run the ball downhill. He wants you to do play action, which involves turning your back to the defense and then whipping around and making a quick decision. And like, that's what made Flacco so successful, is that he was not afraid and he could read defenses fast because of all his experience.
Yep.
So he's like, here, fake handoff, pull that thing back, whip around. Okay, deep ball. Like, he was able to read it right away. Deshaun Watson is not that guy and has never been that guy all the way back to college. So I just don't understand, like, if you are going to do that, which, obviously if you listen to the podcast, you know that neither of us advocate doing that in the first place, and anything involved in that entire situation, don't do any of that. But if you're going to trade for a guy like that guy better be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen.
Yeah.
That guy cannot be Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
So, but all right. Division winner. Again, I'm standing on business. I'm going with what I believe in. I'm going back to the well, and I'm picking the Cincinnati Bengals to take this thing back over. Joe Burrow, revenge season, baby. Joey, he's back. Matt got a break from that because his wrist exploded.
I'm going to stick with Baltimore. I think they figure enough out, at least for the regular season. We will see if they figure anything out in the postseason. But I mean, until further notice, like, yeah, it's Cincinnati. You have to prove it to me that like you're that team. And like as many critiques as we may have about John Harbaugh, I think we would both take him 7 days of the week over Zach Taylor.
Just as long as one of those 7 days doesn't fall on the AFC Championship game. Because it's not happening. But good. I'm glad we have something different because I was starting to get a little bit worried. But that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail at fouledoutsports@gmail.com. You can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. It's a long name, but you can't miss it. Make sure you email us your bold predictions for the upcoming NFL season. Matt and I are going to be throwing out one for every division as we preview all 8 divisions ahead of the NFL season. We would love to hear yours. So email those fouledoutsports@gmail.com. We'll read them on the podcast. And our favorite bold prediction that is submitted by a listener, you get a free hat. I'll send you a free Fouled Out hat if we pick your bold prediction.
Free hat.
That is what I think of every time I say free hat. But all right, buddy, I will see you next week. This podcast comes out on August 9th. August 13th, we'll be dropping the NFC East preview. And then August 16th, next Friday, is going to be the AFC East preview, the home of my beloved Patriots. So, all right, guys, we will see you soon.
Bye,
guys. Bye, Mom.
Bye, Robin.